Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the Outside Line podcast. My name is Jacob Barker, writer for Back Sports Page. I hope you guys are having an awesome day today. Joining me today are Mason Wood and introducing today Chris Shoemaker. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Like I said earlier, it's been a rough day to be a Baltimore fan, but we won't get into that. Other than that, I am doing okay. Mason, how are you today?
I am hanging in there, man. I'm excited to get this week rocking and rolling. A lot of good racing to talk about from this weekend. A lot of crazy things that went on.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. We want to go over what happened at Circuit of the Americas yesterday with the Cup Series and throughout the weekend. I would also like to talk about what we can expect from Richmond this coming weekend, as well as Texas with IndyCar and the trucks, and if we can get to it for Australia with Formula One. But we will get to that when we get to that. Starting off, I would like to talk about Tyler Reddick. Just flat out dominance, I think, is the easiest way to describe it.
I say you give him an extra 20 playoff points for winning that race like 4 times yesterday.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. Yeah, it's funny you say that because I saw a tweet from NASCAR Chasm that said, "Are we down for another overtime finish?" And I retweeted it. I said, "If we're doing that over again, we gotta get some moonshine in here or something, because it's gonna be rough if we do it all over again."
Kurt's reaction to it was the best because he's up in the booth and he's like, "Wait, there's another. We can do another one." And Mike's like, "Yeah." He's like, "When did they make that rule?" Like, I think that rule's been in place a few years, Kurt. I don't think we've just gotten to that point ever.
Yeah, Kurt,
Same thing.
Kurt got a little behind, but that's all good. The old man needs to catch up a little bit. But yes, Tyler Reddick led 41 of the 75 laps on Sunday. Stage 2 winner. Pure dominance, I would say. And it's just crazy to think that I mean, I picked him, but I didn't think he would flat out dominate the race like he did yesterday.
Yeah, I think a lot of people mentioned it, especially they mentioned it in the post race, but there was a lot of instances where you could kind of feel it in practice and qualifying with just how fast he was. And that really showed up on Sunday because he was definitely the fastest car. I mean, every single restart, as soon as he got out in front, he was gone and nobody was going to catch him at that point. He was definitely the class of the field yesterday. And you saw a lot of those guys who had the faster cars and were the class of the field. They were up at the front at the end. You know, you think about William Byron, got a top 5, not the finish that he wanted, but you know, he wasn't going to beat Reddick unless he was in front of Reddick. And as soon as Reddick got around him, you know, with like 13 to go, somewhere around there, it was game over as long as Reddick held his position on the restarts. And they mentioned it on the broadcast, you know, the nerves with all the restarts, and Reddick had a bad restart earlier in the race, and he nailed it every single time through each of those 3 restarts that he had to go through. And it's a credit to him because he's really showing that he is a top 3 road course racer in this series. And it wasn't just a, you know, RCR gave him a good setup or something. There's a, you know, there's a very important part of that equation, and it's him.
Didn't he win like the last 3 road course races?
He won Road America and
yes.
What was the other
one? Indy.
Right. Indy.
And then he won Kansas last year as well. Those were his 3 wins.
Texas.
Was it Texas? Oh, it was Texas. They said Kansas on the broadcast. Got me messed up, Mike Joy.
Yeah, yeah, Mike. I love Mike Joy, but I think he was thinking of when Bubba won in the 45 at Kansas.
Now
that might be what he's thinking of.
Now it's coming back to me.
But yes, Tyler Reddick probably. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I was gonna agree with what Mason said, and I'd say he's a top 3 road course guy in the Cup Series now, along up there with Chase Elliott, um, Kyle Larson maybe, and if you want to throw AJ Allmendinger as well with his wins in the Xfinity Series, you saw him win on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Was that 2 in a row for him at Circuit of the Americas in the Xfinity Series, I believe?
Yeah.
Believe
Yeah.
so.
Just obviously the best road course racer in the Xfinity Series, if not NASCAR history we've seen with AJ Allmendinger. But we can definitely throw Tyler Reddick into that conversation now as an official road course ringer. Would you guys agree on that?
Yeah, especially since he's won the last 3. I mean, what, didn't Chase Elliott win like 6 in a row at one point?
Yes, it was something like that. It was five out of 6, 4 out of 5, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
From
So to me, he's in that
2019.
same league,
Hmm.
and which
Yeah,
that's saying something.
yes, and I don't want to say it's right now. It's not as unexpected as it was when he won his first Cup race, because I don't think I wouldn't have predicted him winning at Road America last season. I don't think anybody would have, if I'm being quite frank.
And he was the class of the
And
field in that race too.
him and Chase Elliott had a great battle for the lead pretty much the entire day, if I remember correctly, and just flat out, I guess, took it from Chase and showed that he can play on the road courses, and he proved it even more so today yesterday at Circuit of the Americas in different equipment than he was in last season. Now he's in the 45 for 23:11. Not, I would say, B plus organization equipment maybe. Not as on the level as Joe Gibbs Racing, obviously, but they are starting to find their ground, I would say, in the Cup Series.
I agree. And yesterday was proof of exactly why they went out and got Tyler Reddick, because he's going to make their race team better in the short term and in the long term. He's already made them better, already got them a win this season. That 45 cars in the playoffs, and we're 6 rounds through this season. So he's going to make them better now, but then in the long run, Tyler Reddick is still a very young driver who is improving week by week, and you can see it from last year compared to this year, just how much he's improved in the composure and everything. So he's going to continue to improve, and 23XI is going to continue to improve. And so they're going to keep getting better, and it's going to be exciting to see how Bubba does with them getting better, because I imagine that 45 team is not done winning races this year.
Oh yeah, I agree. And I just think with Tyler Reddick, like you were saying, he's a young guy, and we got maybe at least 20 more years of this coming between him and Chase. I think him and Chase are roughly the same age. Chase might be a year older. I don't know off the top of my head, but just think about them, both of them battling it out on road courses. I would love to see them, say, race 24 hours at Daytona, or even if you want to go further in international racing, maybe 24 hours to Le Mans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a good point. Now that we have Ty Gibbs, we can add Ty Gibbs into the conversation, because he's going to be in the Cup Series the next 20 years as well, and he can be in the battles with Elliott, Reddick, and even Cindric. People forget how good Cindric was on the road courses in his Xfinity days. We saw him lead early, pretty much right from the get-go yesterday. Got the lead from William Byron and looked really fast. Looked like he could take the challenge up to the 24 and the 45 for a little bit, but ultimately faded away, and I believe got a top 5 finish out of the day.
He ended up in sixth. It's funny because you had asked me last week. You had asked, what's the pressure like for Cindric and Gibbs, and I said honestly, it's very easy for them to sneak into the top 10 and both get some quiet top 10s that people don't really notice. Both Cindric and Gibbs with top 10 finishes yesterday that I don't even think were mentioned on the broadcast after the race. So very good runs by them that just quietly got in there. Ty Gibbs was 9th, and then we saw Cindric in 6th, which is really good because both of them were deep in the pack for, I think at the beginning of all of those restarts. So they made the most of what was going on.
Yeah, and
definitely. You know who else I was really interested or really impressed with too? Kimi Räikkönen.
yeah,
Yeah,
Kimmy was up there in 4th for, I guess it was the first overtime restart, because that's just how the green flag strategy played out. But chaos ensued, is the easiest way to put it.
And everything that kind of happened, I think he finished like 26 or something. But that kind of, I think, mixed with inexperience with the cars and stock cars in general, mixed with kind of a little bit of bad luck there at the end too, brought him down. But I think if things would have went right for him, I think he would have maybe had a top 10 finish. Maybe, I think it was more likely top 15. And every time he's raced in NASCAR, Kimi, he's been very impressive because remember the Watkins Glen race? What was it, last year?
Yeah.
It was last year.
He was up there. I think he was in the top 15 for most of that race, wasn't he?
I believe so, up until the incident with Austin Dillon, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And he had a really good run going. And then just ultimately I don't want to say he got taken out, but he got caught up in an incident. Yes, correct. We'll just go with that. And then had a DNF at Watkins Glen and has now been given a second opportunity in the Cup Series to show that he can race these tough, heavy next-gen cars on a now granted a familiar road course, but in a different series, and he can play around with these guys.
And let's not forget too, is about maybe I think it was like 10 years ago. It was when Red Bull was in NASCAR. It wasn't in Cup. It was either
I think it was a truck race.
Yeah, it might have been. I think you're right. I think it was truck race, but he was in the top 25 for a good chunk of the race, which is very first NASCAR race ever. And being in the top 25 in a Red Bull back then, which the Red Bull cars in any thing
They weren't fantastic.
No. So I was impressed with that.
Yeah,
F1 needs Kimi. Or
yes.
Not F1, NASCAR needs Kimi.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, that race, it was either with KBM or Red Bull. I don't remember correctly. If I remember correctly, it was a truck race. I do know that. It was at Charlotte. I don't know which year it was. It was either 2009, 2010. But like you said, he had a pretty good day. I actually had a friend who went to that race, a father figure of mine, who ended up going to that race and has seen Kimi Räikkönen race in NASCAR. And that's something that not many people can say. Now, granted, that was back when he was still running F1 cars. So that's a pretty cool stat, pretty little story for you guys, but we won't get too deep into that. But Kimi Räikkönen really did have a solid day yesterday, even if he did finish in the low 20s. Had a fairly clean day, may have got bounced around a couple times, but that's just what you can expect from COTA and the restarts. We saw it last year and once again this year.
Well, and credit where credit's due, Jenson Button with an 18th place finish yesterday. He was the highest finisher out of those road course ringers that came over. So credit to him. I know he wasn't up there as high before those restarts, and he made the most of it. He also had some comments after the race talking about how just the ending got a little bit silly with how much guys were getting into each other. So, but congratulations to Jenson for first NASCAR race and first top 20 finish as well.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that. And I remember earlier this morning, I was reading his comments, and I thought one of his quotes was kind of funny about how he thought it was getting silly with everybody running into each other, and he just it was like he was seemed a little bit too gentlemanly for NASCAR and what he was getting himself into.
Yeah, and I can't speak on Jensen too much. I never watched him racing when I was growing up. Um, but to me, it sounds like he didn't expect the bumping and banging on the restarts towards the end. Which, if you're gonna come into NASCAR for a one-off, and it sounds like Jensen's going to do a couple more this year, from what I've read, and I want him to would like to see him do a couple more this year.
Absolutely.
But either way, should probably expect a couple hits here and there, and as well as some chaos on the overtime restarts. Just like I said, let alone the normal restarts. And it's definitely interesting because, like I said, I never watched Jensen when I was growing up, but it was very interesting to see how he brought his style of racing to NASCAR. It was just very interesting because he very quietly made his way up through the pack, even through all the chaos, and came out with 18th place finish. And another thing I would like to bring up real quick, a little thing I want to call road course ringer reports. We had 4 road course springers start. Was it yesterday? And had pretty good days for most of their first starts. Jens Mutton 18th, Jordan Taylor 24th. Kind of surprised that he didn't get a higher finish, but that's what I guess they would have to do with the like I said, the chaos on the restarts. I think he may have spun once or twice on the restarts. I don't remember exactly.
Well, they mentioned it on the broadcast. Is once those drivers see those yellow stripes on the back of that car, they ate him
Yeah.
up early on, and it was tough for him to really get back through the field after that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
two, I think with Jordan Taylor, I think it was too a little bit of bad luck for him because I
Mhm.
think he got seemed like he did either spin his wheels or maybe spun out on a restart, something like that, and it just kind of got a little bit of bad luck. Maybe got bumped into a little bit too hard, not expecting it, and maybe had a snap of oversteer. Something went wrong.
He did lock up going into what was it? The hairpin, going into the back straightaway. I think it was actually on the first lap.
Yeah, it's
It was either on the
into
it was
sector
either
two.
yeah, it was either the first lap or the restart, or the second restart that almost took him out, and Larson and a couple other cars with them. But overall, pretty solid day from Jordan Taylor, 24th. I don't know about you guys, but I would like to see Jordan Taylor in some Xfinity races for Junior Motorsports on road courses.
Oh, absolutely. I think you'd see him run up towards the front, and with a little bit more experience in a stock car, he's only going to get better. And
Hmm.
we know he's fast, qualified 4th, so we know he's fast. It's just about understanding, the way NASCAR drivers race, and that they're going to push you around, and you're going to have to push a little bit back. And I think some Xfinity Series races are really going to allow him to hone in on those skills, and you could definitely see him win some races in the Xfinity Series.
Now, the question is, though, would he rather stay kind of focus on NASCAR, or would he rather stay in sports car? That's a big thing. And I can
Yeah,
understand how sports car kind of has a big draw, and I guess what he would want to stay in there because of the, I guess, very international, well-known races like 12 hours Sebring and 24 hours Daytona. And because in American sports cars, at least, those two are like a crown jewels. And although I would like to see him and his brother go head to head in Busch Series or Xfinity Series. I keep calling it Busch Series. That's been Busch Series for 20 years. But yeah, I'd like to see him and his brother race, see how they would do.
Yeah, that would be cool. I don't know what Ricky would run, but I would assume that Jordan would be put in a junior motorsports car. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know who Ricky would run for because he runs for Acura. Acura, I believe.
I thought he drove the Corvette for his daddy.
Jordan runs a Corvette, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's in Ricky's in Daytona prototype.
Yeah, Ricky drives for Acura.
Okay. Yeah, because they've won like 4 out of the last 6 Daytona 24s. Been very dominant. Anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Bubba. Saw him get into an incident with Kyle Larson. I think it was early on, lap 12, I believe, lap 11, somewhere around there. Locked up on the back straightaway, pretty much ruining his day. Very narrowly missing the left rear tire of Larson. And the post-race interview, not the post-race, but post-crash interview, he was very hard on himself. Would you guys agree on that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. And I obviously want to word this carefully. But would you guys say that he's too hard on himself? Because he's not known for his road course racing skills, but he was having a pretty solid day up until that point, and I feel like he may have been able to get a top 15 if everything stayed clean for him, stayed out of incidents, and we saw last week got caught up by himself in an early incident and ruined his day. But like I said, would you guys say that he's too harsh on himself, gets himself too down, and if he has and we all know that, like I said, 23XI does have good cars, but it's just a matter of, I don't know what the right word would be, harnessing the cars, because and last week really wasn't of his own fault. It was just getting loose, and he couldn't catch it. But overall, would you guys say that he's too harsh on himself when something like this happens?
Well, I think for Bubba, expectations are just so high that he's naturally going to be very hard on himself, especially when he's got his teammate being the fastest car in the field. He's going to be hard on himself. And yesterday, I think he is a little too hard on himself at times, but I thought yesterday, as hard as he was on himself, he did say he made a rookie mistake, and his mistake that he made, it looked bad yesterday. It looked like he had brakes go out, that he had missed the corner so bad, and that sort of thing. It's going to happen from time to time, but Bubba was right in what he said, that he has to be better in some of those aspects, because he had a top 15 finish in his grasp that he kind of let go of because of a mistake, and so he seems to be good for 1 to 2 of those mistakes a race, and it's just a matter of if it takes him out or not. So he he's hard on himself for good reasons, because he does have to be better as a race car driver, but he is, a very, very good race car driver. And I've seen him improving over the last few years. So he does have to start looking at the bright side a little bit more, because their team, that 23 team, they're on the cusp of doing some really good things. They just kind of have to break through the wall. You thought Kansas would be that opportunity last year, but it seems like they still have some of that inconsistencies, but it does seem like they are making improvements. So he has every right to be hard on himself, but he does have to look at the bigger picture sometimes as well.
Oh, yeah, I agree too. I thought that crash there at COTA on Sunday, I thought that was a bit of a strange crash.
It looked very
Yeah,
weird.
Yeah.
because I can understand you lock up and you yeet into another driver and take yourself out, take another driver out. But that something just tells me, it's not like I have the telemetry on me or anything like that. I'm not in the car, so I'm not going to play expert here, but something seemed off with that crash. I don't think that was completely on him.
Yeah, and that's it. Almost reminds me of Larson last year at Indy, where he just got too hot into turn one, I believe, and got himself
Very
and
similar
Tydell in.
situation.
And
that was nasty.
Yeah, and I remember because my step grandfather, I was actually on vacation when I was watching the race, and my step grandfather and my girlfriend and I were all watching the race at the same time, and it was just such a bizarre incident last year at Indy, because said he had pedal going into turn one, but I think it's similar to what happened yesterday with Bubba, where it could be attributed to losing brakes, but also just having too much speed and going into the corner.
Yeah, I think you're probably spot on with that. But like I was saying, it did seem like a strange crash, though, and I think there were a couple of drivers that were complaining about brake issues. I'm not sure though. Maybe that was Was that just me, or were there a couple drivers? Maybe I'm crazy.
I'm honestly not sure, because I didn't see anything.
Myself.
I didn't see anything that Podcast was saying about drivers complaining about brakes yesterday.
Maybe that's just me. But yeah, still that crash also kind of reminds me. I won't go too deep into this, but of the crash last year that Charles Leclerc had at the French Grand Prix, which that crash, that just to recap, he was going through one of the corners. I forget what corner it was, but he just lost the rear end of it, and the car just slid into the barriers. And Charles blamed himself for it, but to me it just didn't look like it was on him. That just looked like something in the car went wrong, and that itself kind of just reminds me of Bubba's crash.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comparison, because I think we can all agree that something in the car wasn't right at the time of Bubba's crash, whether it be the brakes or just something else entirely, and he shouldn't place all the blame on himself, but he's a very fierce competitor. We all know this. But the good news is we are going to Kansas in about a month and a half. Personally, I think this is his best shot of winning again. If not, then Michigan later this year. So I would expect some speed from him at Kansas later this not this coming month, but about May, early May or so. Um, so I would not be surprised if we see the 23 in victory lane pretty soon.
Absolutely. And I think, expectation wise, with Bubba, that he is driving for Toyota, who's had obviously they got the win yesterday, but Tyler Reddick was really one of the only Toyotas that we saw, up front for a while. So Toyota is
Mm-hmm.
still having some issues. They still don't seem quite as fast as some of the other manufacturers yet. So you have to lay that into, Bubba's expectations a little bit too, because Toyota's not running, as good as they could as a whole. Chevy's kind of the class of the field right now. So that has to be remembered as well.
Right.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the manufacturers, something completely random. I would like to see more manufacturers get back into NASCAR just because it's almost just Ford versus Chevy now with what is only
Yeah.
one or two teams using Toyotas.
Yeah, Toyota's definitely gotten smaller over the last couple of years. So 23XI is supposed to be their next like flagship team, but there's been so much talk about like bringing Dodge back or I don't think Dodge will ever come back, but bringing Honda, Hyundai, there's plenty of car brands that could come in and race in NASCAR. I would, just like you, Chris, I would love to see more of them come into the sport because I think it's better for the sport in general.
I'm really surprised Honda, as much as they're into racing in literally almost every other series,
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised they haven't gotten into NASCAR at all.
It's extremely surprising because they're the face of Formula One right now, and
Mm-hmm.
if they continue dominating with Chip Ganassi in IndyCar, why not go to NASCAR?
Yeah, right.
I
So,
think that move gets made, sooner rather than later with their success.
Mm-hmm.
but
So,
yeah, I would like to see more manufacturers in NASCAR.
okay, then let me ask you this, and this is completely unscripted.
That's a best kind of show.
Yeah. um, what manufacturers other than Honda would you guys like to see in NASCAR? Because we've had the rumors for years that Dodge was coming back. Um, I'd obviously I would say that Honda's at the top of the list, but if you ask me, I can see BMW coming into NASCAR because when was it? It was mid to late 2021 where they had a tweet reply, I think, to the official NASCAR Twitter page, um, and they said that everything's better with BMW, and that just sparked the whole conversation with BMW coming to NASCAR as a manufacturer, which I could possibly see as we go down the road with the next gen car, but it would take a couple of years if BMW does come into the sport.
Just in general, that'd be wild, man.
Oh yeah.
Having some European car manufacturer come into modern NASCAR. Back in the day, I believe they did have Jaguars, Aston Martins. Man, I don't know about Aston Martins, but I'm pretty sure they had Jaguars.
Basically, in the old days, it was ran whatever you brought to the track, so
Yeah.
it could have been anything.
But yeah, that would be very interesting seeing some kind of European car manufacturer come in. What do you think, Mason?
I have a slight bias from, I worked at a Hyundai dealership as my first job. I worked there for like 3, 4 years. So even when I was working there, I was begging for them to get something into NASCAR. And it's kind of cool. What I really like, I don't know if you guys have ever played NR 2003, But there's a lot of mods. There's a lot of mods for that game that have all of these different brands, and they have templates for the cars and everything, and you can race them. And that has kind of opened up my eyes to some of these different brands coming in. I would love BMW to come in. I think it would be great for the sport. I think it would put a lot more eyes on the sport, adding BMW. But I would also, because of my bias a little bit, I would love to see Hyundai come in. I've been saying it for years. I think that they would be a solid choice to come into NASCAR.
You know what would be the most wild choice to come into NASCAR? Ferrari.
Oh my gosh!
Like that would ever happen ever.
There's no way.
Well, and since we're on this topic, by the way, I wanted to ask: with Chevy announcing the Camaro gone, what do they go with after the Camaro is gone? Are they going Corvette, or do they pick up something else?
I don't think Corvette. Because that's more
that's a different
IMSA.
class.
Yeah, that's more supercar than anything. If they do go,
would go with GT3 class or GTE class for a stock car, because like you were saying, that's more sports car. I don't know though. Maybe they could. Maybe Chevy Cruze.
Yeah, they could go Chevy Cruze.
Maybe. Maybe they could go back to the SS from the early Gen 6 days. That's a possibility.
That's probably more likely.
Yeah.
The SS, maybe Malibu, could be one you see.
Mm-hmm. Get really wild. Throw back to the 90s. Go back to the Monte Carlo.
I remember the Monte Carlo. I grew up watching the Monte Carlo. Jeff Gordon drive the Monte Carlo, and even Old Dale.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Okay, let's get a little bit on track now that we've had our fun. I want to go on to a little thing that I call penalty reports. Did you guys see the video of Suarez pretty much booting Chastain out of the way on pit road to get to Alex Bowman?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did not like that.
That was not a good look. As much as I like Suarez, that's not a good look, because putting officials in the way, fans, spectators, pit crew, whoever, and like I said, it was on pit road, so if there is a penalty, and I'm 99% certain that there will be a penalty that comes out tomorrow, what could that be?
I think it should be at least a race suspension.
That's interesting, because a suspension is the least likely scenario I could see, but I wouldn't rule it out personally. If there is and I'll say again, when there is a penalty announced, it's going to be hefty. It's going to be pretty hefty. If we're talking about money and points, I'd say at least 75,000 and 75 points.
Oh yeah, it's going to definitely be some points. I think one of the things, I'm actually trying to look it up, because if you remember a while back, there was an incident that was kind of similar with, I think it was Brad Keselowski, under caution trying to wreck somebody, and then when he came back around to pit road, he ran right into Tony Stewart, and then Stewart backed right into him.
Oh yeah,
it's not the same thing, but it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
And so I think if you figure out what they find, that's what I'm trying to Google, what his penalty was, I think it's maybe going to be similar.
I remember that too. I was about to bring that up myself, and I remember it was Tony Stewart that was hit, right?
Yeah, he got hit in the rear end, and then he got very upset and put the car in reverse as hard as he could.
And then Matt Kenseth got involved.
Correct. That was that night.
I remember maybe it was Kenseth that said is either Stewart or Kansas was aggravated about it because he was saying that he was unbuckled, had his helmet off, had everything off. Then he gets ran from behind like at 40 miles an hour, which
Yeah.
that doesn't sound fast, say, in a stock car, but when you're unbuckled without a helmet, that could hurt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I think that was the race that Matt Kenseth ended up going at Brad Keselowski.
Is that the race
Yeah.
he jumped him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was at Charlotte.
That was a fun night.
Yeah, old Charlotte under the lights in October is always a great time. And I want to draw another comparison to this incident was Ty Gibbs last year at Texas Motor Speedway in the Cup race. I forgot who it was with. I want to say it was Ty Dillon.
Yeah, I
But
remember
he
this.
pretty much body slammed another car into the direction of, I think it was Keselowski, and his Keselowski's crew was working on the car, and that put his crew, Ty and Keselowski, in danger. And the penalty for Ty Gibbs was 75,000 and 25 points for door slamming Ty Dillon on pit road during the Cup race at Texas.
I don't remember that one off the top of my head. Was that one intentional? I might have missed that race.
Yes, that was intentional. If you,
Hmm.
I'll send you the link after this if I can find it. But you can visibly see just how severe the door slams were, and the direction of Ty Dillon's car goes right into the path of Brad Keselowski's car. It was pretty scary for a second there because you could see as they were fighting off the race off pit road, just in the background, you could see them door slamming, and the 42 is getting ready to go into the path of the 6 who's working on their pit stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in comparison, I did find, according to SB Nation, for the Keselowski Stewart Matt Kenseth incident, Keselowski was fined $50,000. Stewart was fined $25,000, and they were placed on probation for the rest of the year, which ended up being 4 races. So I definitely expect a fine. And considering what went down and how hard he hit Bowman and moving his teammate out of the way right in front of the officials, I think 25 points is probably pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of Trackhouse, those two are not happy with each other.
No, they were not. They had some talk after the race. Suarez was not happy with Chastain, and Chastain wasn't happy with him for good reason. The hell did I do? Suarez coming through pit road and moved him out of the way. Chastain's like, I'm just here,
Yeah, and if you look back at the replay, I don't know which restart it was. You can just see the one dive bombing to the inside of the 48, which moved the 48 up into the 99, which caused chaos. That's why Suarez was upset, and Bowman was. That's why they had words between Suarez and Bowman.
Mm-hmm.
So, road course tempers, gotta love it.
Road course races in general, I love it.
Oh man, and I think that was the best road course race we've had in a while.
I don't know.
Aside from the finish.
Yeah, maybe if the caution didn't come out and we got the fuel mileage race at the end, because I was glued to my TV with the 4 of them, with Byron and Reddick not good on fuel, but then hearing Chastain and Suarez were good on fuel, I was glued to my TV trying to watch what happens. And then that caution comes out, and I think everybody had the same reaction of, you've got to be kidding me. Like, we were in for a really good finish, and I'm not to say that we didn't get a good one. It was just a very chaotic when it could have been a nice, orderly, solid finish for the race. So I'm very heartbroken we missed out on that, but I'm glad Tyler Reddick still ended up with the win either way.
Yeah.
Could you have imagined the meltdown that NASCAR Twitter would have had if Reddick did not win that race?
Oh, it would have been. I mean, they've had a meltdown every single week. They have found something to complain about. I love NASCAR Twitter so much because all they do is complain. You'll see me on Twitter all the time talking about NASCAR fans complaining. I didn't even look yesterday. I didn't even feel like looking because even I knew the end of that race was a little bit silly, as Jensen Button said. So I didn't even want to look at what they had to say. But I know in past weeks they have eaten things up because of late race cautions that should have been late race cautions. So, not everybody's going to be happy with the way things shape out. But I think everybody can agree that the best car on the track won yesterday. And
NASCAR,
that's.
NASCAR Twitter is kind of like Star Wars fans. Nobody hates NASCAR more than NASCAR fans, and nobody hates Star Wars more than Star Wars fans.
It's true.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, this is why I hate stages, because we were going to get a really good finish, and then of course the yellow came out. But you don't need stages to have a great race. And I hope that this could be the end of the stages. Maybe, I know there was technically stages, but there weren't any stage breaks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping that this could be phasing out the stage breaks.
I definitely liked having them just kind of continue to run because you kind of look a lot bigger picture and you know that you don't have those breaks. So it definitely made things more interesting. And I think it'll be put under a much bigger spotlight when we go to a road course race later this year. And we really do get that fuel mileage finish, that really good finish between a few cars. So that's when it'll be put on display the most. I think that's when you'll hear people really start to kick up those talks of, should we get rid of the cautions? Because it just adds an extra element to the end of the race with the fuel mileage. And those were, I will say as a kid, they weren't always my favorite, but now that they're not here as an adult, I would love to see more fuel mileage races because, NASCAR is all in for the randomness these days. And that was one of the most random things that would happen all the time in some late 2000s races and stuff like that. So if they could, drop stage breaks, you bring back those fuel mileage races, New Hampshire, everybody running out of gas, towards the end of the race. Cause that was a yearly staple with New Hampshire, that everybody was going to be running out of gas those final 5 laps. We don't experience that anymore. So getting back to that would, I think it would be very, very beneficial for just keeping, people you keep people entertained, even if the racing isn't the greatest product we've ever seen. People are still glued to their TV because you do not know who's going to win in those scenarios. So I think getting rid of stage breaks would be a good thing one day. I like that they give out the points, but get rid of the cautions and you're good to go. But TV misses out on their commercial time, and I think that's going to be the number one thing that stops that from happening, is that's TV's time for 4 commercial breaks per race.
Yeah, I was thinking too, just kind of comparing it with other forms of racing, like IndyCar, for example. Like, IndyCar doesn't have stage races, and of course that's a completely different animal. Stock cars, big old heavy stock cars versus little tiny light Indy cars. But the racing is fantastic. You're on the edge of your seat every week with IndyCar race. They don't have to do anything like throw a random yellow for some phantom debris caution or competition caution, which I understand competition cautions a lot of times are for safety, but still, they don't need all of that. That's what I like about IndyCar. So that's why I think they just need to get rid of stages completely.
Yeah, I agree. I don't mind the stages as some of the other people that I know, but I completely understand why they need to go. And I think it worked. No stage breaks at COTA this past weekend, whether it be in the Cup Series, trucks, or Xfinity. I think they all worked just fine. And it would, like I said, it was going to be an exciting finish. Didn't turn out that way, unfortunately.
Well, and we didn't even feel the fact that there were no stage breaks until the Cup race, because both the truck and the Xfinity race, had cautions right when the stage breaks were going to happen. So it didn't feel that much different. So it's been talked about a few times that there's enough natural cautions these days that you could get away with dropping stage breaks and still have plenty of time to do commercials and stuff like that, and have plenty of time for fans to get up, grab a water, grab a beer, whatever they need to do. So it's definitely very possible with the amount of natural cautions that we experience. And there were plenty at the end of the race to show commercials yesterday. We know that.
Now, here's some mind vitamins for you. During red flags, speaking of rules, flag rules, during red flags, what if the NASCAR allowed teams to work on their cars and repair cars?
Oh, that would
just
be...
like F1. That would, to me, that would be fantastic.
Well, that's the unique thing that separates F1 and NASCAR with their red flag rules, is that NASCAR is not allowed to work on their cars during a red flag. But in F1,
is either.
I don't think so either. But with F1, you can replace the entire car if you wanted to.
Yeah, and that's what I love. I think that's a good thing. Say there's a red flag, your car gets real torn up, and looks like under normal circumstances you're not going to be able to get back into the race. But there is a red flag that's maybe going to be going on for an hour. You get a chance to get back in the race. There you go. You might have a chance to get top 10 finish, top 15 finish. And really, as long as the car is safe, of course.
Yeah.
More cars are better, I think, to an extent, but more cars lasting in the race is better, I guess, what I'm trying to say.
Well, I agree with that, but that can be debated on super speedway such as Daytona or Talladega. And if, the more cars that we have on track towards the end of the race, obviously the more likeliness we're going to have a massive wreck at the end.
That's true.
that can be debated, but I feel like that if NASCAR were to make that rule change, it'd be great for the sport, but it does have its flaws. Like I said, such as at Daytona or Talladega.
That's true. I mean, maybe you could limit it at, say, super speedways or something.
Right. It would be a rule that if they implemented it, it wouldn't be at every single track. It would be, short tracks and road courses, that sort of thing is when I think you would see that done the most. I think especially like Bristol, like the Bristol night race and stuff like that, there's such a high chance of getting in a wreck that, being the ability to fix your car if there's a big wreck it would be a very big plus for a lot of teams, especially playoff teams. You know what I mean? It's get all you can in one night, even if you got to repair the car for 35 minutes or so.
Or even for smaller teams that may not have the resources, they want to get out on track for sponsorship money.
Right.
So I think that would be a big plus for everybody. I don't know. I just like the idea of having teams being able to repair their cars in a red flag as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bristol night race, best race to attend in person, I will say. I can't wait to go this year.
I'm not going this year, but I'm gonna go. It's the next race on my bucket list. I've been to the Daytona 500, so next up is Bristol night race for me.
Was it this past Daytona 500?
No, I went back in 2018. I saw Austin Dillon win. I saw the closest finish in Xfinity Series history.
So you saw him. You saw Dillon just body Almirola on the last lap.
Oh yeah, I have the video of me recording the last lap, and I was rooting for Almirola, and you just hear me as soon as Almirola's up in the fence. I think my camera moves, so you don't see that he's in the fence, but you hear me yell, "Oh no!" like so sadly. And then Austin Dillon comes around, and it's funny all the reactions of the people in the fans around me or in the stands around me, because there was. There was a couple guys that they must have won a bet or something, because they all of a sudden just turned to each other and smiled and high-fived each other. And then the girl right next to them had her middle finger as high as she could towards Austin Dillon. I mean, it was such a different reaction. I'll remember it for the rest of my life.
Those are NASCAR fans. That's all I can say. But yeah, Bristol Night Race, definitely a bucket list race and a Southern 500. I want to go to the Southern 500 one day. I live like 6 hours from there, so
Mm-hmm.
so definitely a bucket list race for me. But
Yeah, I think
anyway,
yeah, another bucket list race. I've never been there personally. I've just kind of been around it, but a Wilkesboro race.
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Every time
yeah.
I'm in North Wilkesboro, I have to go over to the track, see how it's coming. And last time
Well,
I was there was about a month ago. It looked really nice, and it's really coming along. It makes me happy
Oh
just to
yeah.
see that track
it,
being getting
it's
love.
it's so awesome.
3 seconds of tire fall off in the trucks when they tested there last week. Cup drivers had really good things to say from their test last week. That track's going to be absolutely amazing to watch. And if that all-star race goes well, I mean, North Wilkesboro back on the schedule is a points paying race. Not
Yeah,
out of the picture. Not out of the picture whatsoever.
Would it is it already a regular race for trucks?
Yes, I think they have
it's a
Yeah.
points
a regular
race.
season race for them, which I think is a really good thing for the truck series. That's going to put some eyes on the truck series that weekend that the truck series needs for sure.
I have family that lives in North Wilkesboro, so I go over there like once every couple of months.
Mhm.
And I actually am surprised that NASCAR went back there because I don't know if y'all have ever been to Wilkes County or
I
North
have.
Wilkesboro. It's a small town, and these days you wouldn't think that it would be able to handle a major thing like a modern NASCAR race. But it's back, and I'm happy about it. I'm here for it.
I'm excited for it. It's going to be a fantastic all-star race, and that truck race is going to be even more exciting with the tire fall off and everything. A lot of strategy going to be in that race. It's going to feel very old school at an old
Hmm.
school track.
Yeah, I would have went to the All Star race because I live only like, I don't know, not even 3 hours from there. But if tickets weren't $1,000 each, then
Mhm.
that would have helped a little bit.
That's how
Um,
I feel with the Las Vegas Grand Prix. We were making jokes saying, "Let's go to the Las Vegas Grand Prix," and then ticket packages were like $3,500, and I'm like, "That's not gonna happen."
that's that's stupid.
I'm not paying. I mean, I can't find myself paying that much to do it. I just can't.
There
No.
were I used to work at this one advertising agency, and one of our clients, he had had a really good year, and so he decided to blow some of his profits and go to the F1 race in Miami as last year, and
Mm.
he ended up blowing like $3,000 on a ticket.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think it
It's
was a cheap ticket too.
Yeah,
mhm.
that sounds pretty cheap for standards nowadays. Um, Next, I want to talk about the new Aero package. We saw it debut at Phoenix this year on a 1 mile track. Now is the first time we saw it on a road course. I thought it I thought it was fantastic from the racing that we saw up front all day long, pretty much side by side. Uh, Even with the varying strategies, I thought it worked well. Um, and if all goes well with the future road courses that we have throughout the season, it genuinely has me excited for future road courses on the year. And could you imagine if they had Road America on the schedule this year with this new Aero package?
I think.
That that
Oh man,
that would have been a great time.
absolutely. It makes you. I'm very curious to see how that Chicago street course race turns out as somebody that's from Chicago, but definitely gonna miss Road America with this Aero package. The way guys were able to move around yesterday, and there was a lot of passing and a lot of driver skill was put on display yesterday in a really good way for this Aero package and for NASCAR. So it's sad that we're not going to get to see it perform at Road America, but hopefully, we'll go back in the future to that track. It's a beautiful racetrack. I'd love to see them back there.
Oh, I'm pretty positive NASCAR will be going back to Road America because it's a track that's just too iconic to leave out.
Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, with the contracts that they signed for Road America, they only signed like a 1-year deal at a time. So that's why I feel like that the Chicago Street Course is kind of an experimental thing. Say, hey, let's try this. If we can't, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Let's go back to Road America if we can.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be more experimental. And a lot of it comes down to as well, there's a lot of elections with some city officials in Chicago and stuff like that. And I know that, the local, Chicagoans aren't thrilled because NASCAR is going to take up this part of the section, not just for that week. Like they're going to take up this part of a part of the city for, I believe, 6 to 8 weeks to get everything set up is what I heard.
At least.
It's a lot of time for a very important section of Chicago to be shut down. So, there's going to be a lot of things that go against this over the next couple years. So if it ends up flopping this year, it could be very quick. We see those guys back in Road America and the Chicago Street Course dies. So it's going to depend on how good that race is. That race is going to be a very big deal simply because it's going to decide the future of that July 4th date going forward.
And just in general, see how well NASCAR does at street tracks, which
Exactly.
on paper, that sounds like a terrible idea. But yeah, I mean, if you want a crazy street race with NASCAR, send them to Long Beach.
No.
That's what I want to see.
There would never be enough room in Long Beach for anybody to do anything.
That's not no.
It'd be the most terrifying race ever. They'd fan out with the one big straightaway where it gets really, really wide. They would fan out 7 wide and then have to get down to like 2 wide to go around that little carousel. It would never happen. These drivers would wreck themselves constantly.
I can imagine like 5 cars just being stuck in the fountain.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that'd be terrible.
The picture of it, like in my head, just oh my goodness, it would be so entertaining as a fan, but as a driver, you would dread the day, nonstop.
That reminds me of the road course race a couple of years ago at Indy when the curb came up. That was chaos.
No. So bad. And that's and that brings up another point. It's just, should we have as many road course races as we do, but should they be at the same locations every year?
I like the idea of moving things around a little bit. For me, I've never been too big into the road course racing up until the last, 5 or 6 years. So getting to see all sorts of different tracks that we've raced on has been really, really nice. And seeing some of those, Xfinity tracks finally get cup dates has been really awesome. I know, like on the Xfinity side, I look forward to watching Portland. I think Portland is I love the Portland racetrack out there, the road course. So I think you could definitely move things around a little bit, especially because those road courses are going to be located in some pretty big markets, depending on where you go. So you could definitely move things around, but I like the idea of, we have the one Roval race. I don't think we need more than that. I thought that we did the Daytona road course and it was fun, but I don't necessarily think it needs to be something we do every year. So you could definitely start moving things around. I'm not big in the Indy road course. I don't think anybody's really big into the Indy road course. I'd rather see us go back to the oval there. So I would love to see us go back to the oval at Indy and then, possibly find, bring Road America back or just find another facility that would be really good for NASCAR. Cause I guarantee you there's going to be some out there.
Here's a crazy idea. like say let's take one or two approved NASCAR tracks out of the calendar. What if they had a fan vote for those a group of approved tracks and have put that track in there once a year or something to kind of just keep things mixed up? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think it'd keep things fresh.
I think that'd be crazy too, just having fans vote on their favorite track. I don't think that would work well, but
Oh no.
But it's just would be interesting. Then you'd get somebody like me that'd want to race at Long Beach.
Well, here's the thing. I was actually thinking about this the other day. If we do have another street course race, like at a different location other than Chicago, Denver might be the perfect area to have a street course there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my thoughts because the NASCAR used to be pretty prominent in Colorado because we had Pikes Peak there.
I miss Pikes Peak.
Great track for the trucks and Xfinity. And
IndyCar
we've
race
got
there too.
I want to say they did.
Maybe it was IRL.
Yeah, I want to say that. I think it was the IRL that raced at Pikes Peak.
IndyCar did race at Pikes Peak in 2003, 2004. It was part of the schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Then it was probably IRL then.
Okay. But if there is another road course or street course race in the future, like I said, I think Denver would be a great option because we've got the Mile High Stadium right there, pretty much in downtown. That could be a great backdrop for the road course. And then we have many major interstates going through Denver, so that can be just a huge tourist attraction. Saying, hey, we're just going to the highway or through Denver, and NASCAR's in town this weekend. Let's just check it out. We don't have to go to the race or anything. Let's just see practice or something.
Right. The street courses are a great way to get different markets that aren't in NASCAR right now. It's a great way for them to get involved. I've heard Seattle get mentioned a couple times for street course. I mean, there's so many different cities that aren't as involved and don't have a big market that we could create a market at and help grow that market there. And I think Denver, as you said, perfect place to do that.
There's also other tracks that are kind of semi-street tracks that are already established that could be a thing. Like if NASCAR really wants to go crazy and take a risk, go to Melbourne Park.
Ooh, yeah.
And
that'd be interesting.
Or if, say, although it's not a street track, go to Fiji Speedway or Suzuka in Japan.
I would love if they would go back to
that. That would be awesome.
They did race at Suzuka in the 90s once or twice.
Yeah, as a just a one-off, kind of like the Clash.
But I think they should maybe explore some more international stuff.
That would be awesome. If they can just at least take a look at some places. This will be a disaster if they do it, but Hockenheimring would probably be a start to look at because there really hasn't been much mentioned of Hockenheimring in the last 5 years since F1 left.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why that is either. They've been trying to get a race back there and or Nürburgring for the last little while, but I don't know why. The old Hockenheim track, well, they raced prior to like 2001. That would be a unique race for NASCAR.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The long one.
Yeah, that's a long track. They could possibly do it there, or
they can't do it there anymore.
No, Yeah, I was just saying that if they could, that would be interesting. It's going to be funny, and I already know this won't work out. But how about Mount Panorama? Could you imagine? That would be insane. It obviously won't work out, but that'd just be insane if something could work out.
You know what's crazy about Mount Panorama? They don't have catch fences at certain parts of the track. If you're not
That's the
careful, you'll just
scary
roll
part.
over the mountain.
Hey, that's
Yeah,
old school right there.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
Who
But
needs walls? Who needs fences?
Exactly.
well, remember they used to have no catch fence on the back straightaway of Pocono until
Yeah,
Casey Kane got into the trees in 2010.
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that too. And think of what would happen if Robert Wickens, if there wasn't a catch fence there.
that that would have been a lot worse than it was.
And it was already pretty bad too.
It was
Right.
terrible. Okay, one last thing for the Cup Series before we move on to other stuff. Do you guys think that the overtime rules should change for road courses because we've got unlimited tries on obviously at overtime for a green flag finish. I want to see green flag finish much like anyone else, but what we saw yesterday was just chaos and should not have happened the way it did. We saw what was it, 4 cautions, I believe. We saw one caution set up overtime, and then we had 3 overtimes to end the race.
Mm-hmm.
So if there is overtime rule changes for road courses, personally, I believe that we should only be allowed one green white checker at road courses. Now, and that can be debated with super speedways as well, because they used to have the restrictions on super speedways for green white checkers. But do you guys think that NASCAR should at least take a look into changing overtime rules for road courses?
I think it should be discussed. I mean, a lot of what came down to it yesterday was just guys, it's this thing we've talked about. It's been a topic of conversation for a few years now, and it's consistently talked about, but the respect level. And I feel like we saw a lot of respect in some of those front 3 rows. I mean, Kyle Busch had many opportunities to just absolutely send Tyler Reddick, and he never did. They raced each other very clean up front, and then it was just everything in the back. And so if guys could learn to respect each other, this wouldn't be a topic of conversation. But there's so much disrespect. There's so much, I'm just going to floor it in there and use guys as my pick to get around and gain positions. That sort of thing. As long as that continues, it might be time for NASCAR to step in and say, okay, we're giving you a limited amount of times to do this, because I was sitting there yesterday wondering, is this even going to end? Like, will this just continue to go on and on and on until we run out of cars? Because everybody just kept piling into that first corner, and there just wasn't enough respect being handed out. So until the respect level gets up there, it's going to be a topic of conversation. Now, my opinion is, I like that it's as many times as we can get, just because you're always going to guarantee that the race is going to finish under green. I've always liked that. And I know for myself, I complained about the way it used to be back in the day when we run out of attempts to do it. So I do like it. And I do think that it should stick around, but it comes down to the drivers respecting them, each other and themselves a little bit more.
Now, with road courses, it depends on the track, honestly, because say Austin, for example, that's a very long track
Right.
in terms of
It's
NASCAR. That's like
over 3.5 miles.
yeah, and that's like a 2-minute 13 on green flag lap for NASCAR. And that's probably like 5 minutes on a caution lap. So that's maybe at a track like that. Yeah, they probably need to limit it to maybe 3.
those tracks that they fan out a lot, because like you don't see that sort of thing in Watkins Glen. You don't see that sort of thing in Sonoma. It's much more respectful, much more orderly. It's just some of these newer tracks, you know, the Indy Road Course, this track, some of those tracks that you have so much space entering that first corner. We've seen that happen a lot. So I think doing it specific to the track would be a great idea.
And then you mentioned too about maybe limiting it for super speedways too briefly. I like that idea because that makes me think of Ryan Newman's crash a couple of years ago. And wasn't that on a green white checker?
I think so, but it was coming to the line of the 500.
Well, and that whole thing still, I think, could have been somewhat avoided. Maybe that a situation similar to that could be avoided because, like you say, guys aren't going to give anybody respect at the last 3 laps of the Daytona 500. Everyone wants to win that thing.
Oh yeah,
and understanding that, I think you need limited attempts and something like that because those crashes, they're going to hurt somebody, especially with this car.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go on a tangent a little bit about this.
Here we go.
I don't like it because it's built like a tank, but it's built like a tank in a bad way. See, like, you throw a brick at something, brick at a wall, it just breaks. But say you throw something like, I don't know, an aluminum can or something, it'll crush and the shock would be absorbed. That's a terrible analogy that I'm using, but that's the only thing I can think of. And but the thing, my point is, the cars are built like tanks in a bad way.
Well, you're right though. I mean, these cars,
Yeah.
they can hit the hell out of each other, and it doesn't really matter these days. And you see them really apply the bumpers. It's not as much like the Gen 6 era where if you just moved the wrong way behind the guy without even touching him, you can spin him out. Now, in order to really send a guy and in order to spin a guy out, you have to deliver it in there. And we've seen these guys just take advantage of how rough these front bumpers are and how much they can do with it. And it's starting to maybe become a problem because, as I said earlier in the our podcast, as Jensen Button said, they looked silly yesterday, those final few restarts. By the third one, I looked at my dad, I said, what the hell are we doing here? Like this just looks silly. We look stupid right now. So that stuff has to get cleaned up. It's a respect thing, and using the fact that they have such hard bumpers, they're going to use them every time.
And two, let's think about that that crash that Kurt Busch got in last year. Mm-hmm. That was responsible because of how the car is built like a tank. I'm no physicist, but I think the cars do need to have a little bit of crumple to them, or else people are going to get hurt.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I sound like an idiot going on this rant.
No, I don't think you do.
No, and you're 100% right. Something definitely needs to be done, but it just can't be fixed overnight. That's the problem.
And they can't roll back either.
Yeah. So it's kind of one of. Go ahead.
I kind of half expect this generation of car to not be around that long for that reason, because seems like now we're starting to lose drivers to injuries a little bit more frequently, whereas before in the old gen car, you'd maybe lose one driver to an injury, a minor injury, but then you lost 2 last year. Kurt Busch, and then remember that really nasty crash Cody Ware got in. Was it Texas?
It was Texas, and Alex Bowman had one at Texas as well that gave him concussion-like symptoms until the end of the year at Phoenix.
Yeah, so last year we lost 3 drivers to injury and might have permanently lost one, probably have permanently lost one with Kurt Busch being forced to retire.
Right.
So luckily we haven't seen anything major like that happen yet, but the cars to me haven't looked like they've changed all that much. And that worries me.
That is a good point, and I think to your point, if this car could end up being very similar to what we saw with Gen 5 and how much you look at when Gen 5 first came out and then what it was by the end of it in 2012. I mean, technically the same car, but they had made so many changes. It didn't look anything like what it originally had looked like. You could see something very similar with that where they continue to work on it. But to your point, it doesn't seem that we've made as much progress as I think guys would like to see entering this season.
I remember at the end of last season, Denny Hamlin was really angry about something. It was about the design of the car or something. And they didn't really go into what he was angry about, but he was said that NASCAR needs better leadership. And that really kind of made my ears perk up, because if that's a legitimate concern with the cars, with the car design, then I think something needs to be done, because I am a little bit, I don't know, I guess afraid that something could happen with these cars, because like I was saying, last year we lost 3 drivers to injuries. And it's been 20 years, 21 years since we lost Old Dale. And we've made a lot of progress since then, but I don't know. To me, these cars seem like we took a step backwards. And then look at the what was it, the Clash that had the fire problems? Was it the Clash?
Well, I mean, we had fire problems this weekend with COTA and Zane Smith. I mean,
yeah.
To be fair, that was his own fault.
Oh, it was. I loved it. I watched it live. I loved it. I was like, damn, he really burned it down. That's for sure.
I was there halfway paying attention to that race. I had it on, but I was playing Fallout while I had it on, and I paused my game, and I was watching the celebration, and I was like, is this car on fire?
So, fun fact, they're actually making a diecast of that car. So,
oh, yes. I am definitely getting that.
It's going to be interesting as
flames on his next paint scheme on the rear wheels.
Yeah, so they're making a diecast of that truck, Allmendinger's car, but not of Tyler Reddick's car. Thanks, Monster.
Wow.
So
they could make it some generic energy drink, or make it like Moonster.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll never get over the fact that Monster has as many freaking flavors as they do. They could have some of the best paint schemes in the entirety of NASCAR, and they just choose not to because they roll out the same black and green car every week. Imagine a pipeline punch car. Imagine if it was like FedEx and Denny Hamlin had all the different colors. You have a different color for the zero sugars every week. They could have a different paint scheme almost every week, and yet they choose to go with the same boring black paint scheme. I'll never get over it. I never will get over it.
Remember how great the Amp Energy paint scheme was with Dale Jr.?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. And they would have a couple color variants in that one, too. You know, he had the orange one that I really remember.
Was that Talladega, I think? There's a couple.
There was the orange one. You saw the green one a lot. There was I think there was a red one, if I can't remember correctly. I'm looking it up to see if there was any.
That was at Charlotte one year, I think.
There was a lot of variation in those cars, because even Amp had some different variants of their energy drink that they would put out there that just really cool paint scheme designs. And I wish that Monster would follow suit, because I mean, you've seen their can designs. There's so much they could do with paint schemes and marketing in NASCAR that they just miss out on, and they have been for years.
They need some of the Red Bull guys to come over and help them do some marketing.
Absolutely.
All right. A couple things I want to go over before we finish off. The current playoff standings, we have, and this is going over the top 16, including the ones that are already locked in on wins. William Byron, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ross Chastain, Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, Brian Blaney, Austin Cindric, Martin Truex Jr., Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher, Daniel Suarez, and Corey LaJoie. And notable drivers below the cut line: Alex Bowman, 13 points below the cut line. Bubba, 36 points below. AJ Allmendinger is also 36 points below. Eric Jones, 40 points below. Larson, 69 points below. Nice. Chase Elliott,
the same thing. I didn't want to say it.
90 points below the cut line. I feel like all that's going to change really soon, especially with the appeals from Hendrick Motorsports starting this Wednesday. Just this playoff grid is not going to stay the same as it is right now. That's the simplest way of putting it. It's going to be interesting to see who gets in, who doesn't. And like I said, but I don't think Suarez is going to be in as of right now, with the impending penalty coming tomorrow from NASCAR. So I believe that'll, if my calculations are right, that'll put Bowman in, who has had a very good year so far, even with the 100-point penalty. And like I said, I kind of expect that penalty to change from NASCAR to Hendrick Motorsports for all the drivers, but never say never. So that's pretty much all that we have for COTA. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some IndyCar. Exactly. Let's talk about some IndyCar this weekend. They're going to be in Texas. Basically been dominated by Penske recently. Saw Newgarden win last year between him and that was a great race between him and Scott McLaughlin. Could we see Penske dominance return this year? Because I believe we can. If we don't see Ganassi perform like they have at Texas before, I believe we will have a Penske winner.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. But that's more me having a hunch and then seeing how good Penske, who was it, won St. Petersburg? It was McLaughlin, right?
I would have to check because I genuinely do
Marcus
not remember.
Ericsson won St. Petersburg.
That's
right. It was Marcus.
Ericsson. I don't know why I thought it was McLaughlin. That's right. Him and Grosjean got tangled up right at the last part of the race. Anyways, Penske looked really good at St. Petersburg, and if we see anything coming from that, anything like moving on, if they have any momentum coming from that, I think it'll show in Texas. I used to not like oval IndyCar races because there were a lot of people getting hurt back in the day. But now they've gotten better. But that's a side thing.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that another day. But as much crap as I give Texas, it works for IndyCar for the most part. It's actually a pretty good racetrack for IndyCar.
It's very entertaining.
It is. And I believe the trucks are there as well this weekend, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out as well. So we have the typical IndyCar and truck doubleheader at Texas. We usually have that about once a year, I believe. So, and it's earlier this year than it usually is. So normally they have it about June-ish, or early June or so. Now it's in early April. That'll be interesting to see how the track changes from April compared to June for both series, actually. So, going to be a good race for both series, I believe. Now let's talk about the Australian Grand Prix. Who's expecting anybody else than Red Bull to win?
Red Bull's a lock.
Okay. Glad we talked about that.
Honestly, I expect Max to run away with the championship. I don't foresee any sort of fight to Ferrari to put up. I think Ferrari's just going to be Ferrari.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
Ferrari's probably just going to implode on themselves, and that's sad, unfortunately.
I actually think we might see another Alonso podium. I just got a hunch. I don't have anything behind that. I just got a hunch, though.
He's been.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see another Alonso podium, because that's obviously, aside from Checo, he's Max's closest competition right now, even though they already have a 20-point gap in the driver's standings.
You know who's pleasantly surprised me? Logan Sargent. I thought he was honestly going to be like a upgrade from Latifi, but that's a small upgrade from Latifi, but that's going to be it. But he's actually surprised me. He's been doing pretty good. He's been finishing near the points and close to Albon.
Just need a little luck on his side.
Yeah, which I'm happy for him, because Americans in F1 get a
bad rep.
Yeah. I didn't want to go on some rant, but yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually about to go on one a little bit. But when Colton Herta tested, I think it was for McLaren, F1 fans hated that.
Yeah.
It was sad. It was genuinely sad to see the backlash from that. Mm-hmm. And he got rejected by the FIA to get a super license, and that just went downhill as quickly as it did. But I guess, like I said, it's a shame, because I believe that the U.S. needs at least some representation in F1, because we really haven't had any since Rossi was in the grid. I don't know how many years ago.
That's like 5 races too. So
yeah, it wasn't many. Anyway,
then it was Scott Speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then before then it was Michael Andretti.
Michael Andretti in the 70s. Yeah.
No, that was Michael Andretti in the 90s. Mario.
Or not Mario. Sorry. You're right. Michael's trying to start his own F1 team, which I could see if everything goes right, but the FIA is stupid.
Yeah. I remember when that was going on, though, with the Colton Herta, Brad Keselowski put on Twitter that Americans aren't welcome. And I wish I had a graphic or something to show the tweet to y'all. But Americans aren't welcome in F1 paddock. Only American money is. And that was a very profound statement. Because think about how many American drivers that they either rejected, or F1 teams they've chased off, and how they snubbed their nose at IndyCar. Mm-hmm. And then that whole thing with Colton Herta annoyed me. I understood why they wouldn't give him his super license, because they want to protect the FIA's way of doing things, which Okay, that's understandable, but to snub IndyCar like that, that's bad.
Yeah, that was
Mhm.
not good.
And you know who I think would be a race winning contender? Joseph Newgarden. If he ever went into
Oh
that,
yeah,
Oh yeah,
he is
110%.
Joseph Newgarden, I think, is the best American driver we have currently.
yeah. If the opportunity comes up, I would love to see Newgarden, even if it's in testing. Go out for F1. Just like I said, just at least for testing. That'd be great for the
YOLO it.
sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, and it would be great for the U.S. I think.
Absolutely.
I remember I was reading about him going out for F1, some F1 team, I believe. I don't remember who it was, but they were trying to talk him into testing, and he just wasn't interested in F1.
Hmm.
And I can see why. I can really see why.
Yeah, it's understandable. Um, anyway, we are going to Richmond this weekend for Cup and Xfinity. I'm really hoping that the new short track package does its job. Good job, Mason. I saw that.
Yeah, yeah. Drop my mic.
Yeah, we're gonna throw you under the bus to all the audio listeners.
Award-winning podcast professionalism here.
We're 100% professionals.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, like I said, we are going to Richmond this weekend for Cup and Xfinity. Really hoping that the short track package does its job, because Richmond has a special place in my heart for being to so many races there in the past,
Mhm.
and I want to see it produce good races because it hasn't been great racing recently. Now, last summer wasn't that bad. I will say I think it was the August race. It really wasn't that bad, but if the short track package does its job, not only here but at Martinsville as well, I think we're going to see some great short track racing in the end of the season.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that wasn't touched on as much when we went to Phoenix, but we saw a lot of different parity where the top three was each of the three manufacturers, followed by three more of each of the three manufacturers. So there was a lot of bit of parity with the different manufacturers. You may see that again this weekend for sure. And I think, does Tyler Reddick carry some of that momentum that he's earned from this week? Do they carry that into this weekend? I think for me, that's going to be the biggest question of Richmond. Is he going to continue to carry Toyota, and get them another victory, or are we going to see somebody else really step up and have a good finish for Toyota? Because really, it's just been Reddick and Christopher Bell that we've talked about with Toyotas. We haven't seen guys like Denny Hamlin be up there, and Martin
Yeah.
Truex Jr.'s been up there, but he's had issues. We saw him up there for a brief moment yesterday, got turned around in some of the mayhem. So my eyes are going to be really on the Toyotas because Richmond has been Toyota's ground for a long
For
time.
years.
Exactly. So it's going to be very crucial for them to see where they're at here at Richmond, because it's going to be a real test of, is Toyota starting to fall off and are they behind Chevy and Ford? We're going to really figure that out this weekend, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't watched Richmond race in a couple of years just because things come up, but Richmond does kind of have a special place in the heart of a NASCAR fan just because it's always just one of those tracks. It's like Bristol, it's Martinsville, it's not just short tracks, it's just one of those staple tracks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one race too. Back in my old NASCAR games that I used to play, like I remember I played NASCAR Racing 4, and that was in 2001 season. Best physics still of any racing game I've ever played, and it's 20 years old. And but yeah, that was one of my favorite tracks. And yeah, I believe it even had like a little tiny day-night cycle in there. That was just always a pretty track too, and to race within video games.
Mm-hmm.
NASCAR 07 Richmond was the track I would always race at because it was the only track that I could actually race at where the car wouldn't just. I was like 6, 7 years old, and the car, like if you steer it too much, would just go straight into the wall, and I was terrible. Richmond was the only track that I could actually do, so I would just do Richmond races nonstop as a kid.
That was me with NASCAR Thunder. I think it was 2004. I finally won my first race when I was a kid at Martinsville, and I was in the 42 Target car. I don't remember who was racing in 42 back then. Wasn't Spencer.
Jeremy
Mears,
Mayfield.
I think it was Casey Mears.
It might have, yeah.
And I won my first race driving at Martinsville, and it was kind of out of luck and out of me not knowing what I was doing. And then I kept racing Martinsville right after that. But yeah.
All right.
Well, I do want to give a big shout out for this weekend. We are going to see the Wheel and Modified Tour at Richmond with these guys this weekend as well. So be on the lookout for those wheeling races because those are always extremely entertaining, especially at Richmond. I love watching them. That'll be on Flow Racing, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday night. That kind of makes up for the truck race not being there because the trucks are obviously going to be at Texas on Saturday night.
Yeah, and to go over where all the times will be, let's see. For the Cup race, it'll be on FS1, I believe.
Yep, FS1.
April 2nd, this coming Sunday at 3:30. And the Xfinity race will be on FS1 as well at 1 p.m. on Saturday. And the truck race will also be on FS1 at 4:30 p.m. So before we close everything out, who do you guys think will have a shot at Richmond?
Oh man, who did I pick? I feel like some of my picks last week weren't terrible, but this week I don't know, man. I expect Tyler Reddick to run up front again. He was really solid, but I think if I had to pick somebody, I want to say Kyle Larson. I want to say Kyle Larson gets it done this week, but he's been so shaped. The last couple of weeks, there's been no momentum on that team, so you worry a little bit about them. But I definitely think if I had to pick one driver for this weekend, I'll tell you what my pick's going to be. I'm going to go with Joey Logano this weekend.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Joey's the man this weekend. He's been solid in some of these short track races, and they did not have a good run at Phoenix. And I think that's going to be on his mind, considering he won a championship there and went and ran like 20th place or something. So they're going to be very strong this weekend, and I expect Logano to be a very big factor towards the end of the race.
I'm thinking Kyle Larson, because you can't ever count Kyle Larson out.
Absolutely.
He's as a Larson basic, easy pick, but I'm going to pick him anyway.
Yeah, as a Larson fan, I've been going through it the past couple of weeks. It's been crazy. Anyway, Christopher Bell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Christopher Bell. He's another
finished second last year. He only needed one more lap to get Harvick, and he would have won that race. Mm-hmm. And won Martinsville last year. I feel like he's proved himself as a pretty good short track racer, and this might be his best opportunity to win thus far in the season. So, go ahead.
He's been solid, man. He's gonna have a good one this weekend, 100%.
Yeah, and this will be a great opportunity for Christopher Bell to possibly get his first win on the year.
Absolutely. And another dark horse guy that I would like to mention as well, Martin Truex Jr. Look out for him. I think he could have a very solid weekend. Really, like we said, this is Toyota's place. Do they show up and perform? Do these guys end up in the top 10, or does it end up being a flop? If they perform, expect Martin Truex Jr. to be there at the end as well.
Man,
I
it's weird
halfway.
calling Truex a dark horse. It's just so
It's
weird calling him.
weird, but he hasn't won in so long. But I thought he had a decent shot yesterday when he got up towards the front. I hated that he got spun around. So he's gonna get it. It's coming. It's very close.
Yep.
I'm also gonna say keep an eye on Bubba because after the hard last couple of weeks he's had, he might be just angry enough. The beast's gonna come out.
Yeah,
And
it'll be interesting.
I like Bubba coming into this upcoming race.
Well, and he's had
Yeah.
some pretty decent finishes. He finished 13th there in August of last year, so he could definitely have a good day. They've just had issues that have gone wrong every time he's been over at Richmond. So if they have a solid car, I agree with that. He's gonna have a good day as well.
Yeah, my two picks I think are Larson and maybe Bubba.
Yeah, if I had to pick two guys, man, I said Bell. Man, I don't know who else. Alex Bowman. Why not?
Yeah. Okay.
Why not? Been very good all year. Was the points leader before his 100-point penalty, and had a really good day yesterday with COTA. And I want to say this before. I should have said this at the beginning of this recording this episode, but we are recording this on a Monday, the day after COTA. So that's why we're referring to Circuit of the Americas as yesterday. So anyway, now that that's out of the way.
Well, and Alex won Richmond in 2021 as well, so I'll give you some credit there because he won it April of 21. So keep that in mind. He's solid there. I like that pick.
And that's kind of where he started. I don't want to say this, but got his nickname from backing into the wins. I love you, Alex. Don't hate me for this. Anyway, that is going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you guys, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you guys for listening. My name is Jacob Barker, writer for Back Sports Page. So follow me on Twitter and Instagram at jwbarker24. Joining me today are Mason Wood and Chris Shoemaker. Guys, if you could please let the audience know what your social handles are, that would be awesome, and where to find you on Back Sports Page.
Yeah, my social handles, guys, Mason Hollywood 6 over on Twitter, and then Mason.wood01 over on Instagram. On my Twitter, there's going to be a link tree in my bio. That's going to take you straight to my page on Back Sports Page, where you'll see all of my articles going up and stuff like that. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. I have a lot of work coming out this week, and I'm very excited that we have gotten this going. We've got 3 guys on the podcast now. I am excited for the future of the outside line. Big things going to happen from this podcast. So let's keep up the good work. And like we said, give me a follow on all socials and stuff like that. You'll hear me posting about the race and about football as well throughout the week. So make sure to follow me there.
All right. And my Twitter handle is just a sports fan, just with capital A sports _ fan, because I'm very unimaginative when it comes to names. And I've been meaning to get into Twitter a little bit more. So look out for some more tweets, and I am working on a couple of articles this week. I'm hoping to have an NHL article out and an article about the upcoming or the best American drivers in history. So be on the lookout for that.
Sounds awesome. So, like I said, guys, thank you guys for joining the episode today. Everyone watching or listening, have a good day, guys. And thank you for tuning in. And we will catch you guys next time on the Outside Line podcast.
Adios.
See you.